Back at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Rick Saratella checking in from the world famous All Access Football Studios here, broadcasting live around the universe at the Jersey Shore. And buckle up for our third episode here on the September 3rd, 2025. It's your home for real football talk. We've had a jam-packed week. On Monday, we kicked off our first show, a little bit of a reintroduction to who we are, what we do, bringing you the names you need to know first since 2002. We've always got one eye on the NFL draft, 238 days away till destination Pittsburgh. And we're going to be counting you down to the NFL draft. We talked college football this week. We had our guy Thor Nystrom yesterday's show. If you have a fantasy football draft tonight like I do, go listen to yesterday's show. The last 45 minutes we spent talking about fantasy football sleepers, names you need to know, value picks, strategies, new fantasy football leagues emerging. Thor Nystrom from fantasylife.com did a great job for us yesterday. We thank him so much. Later on today, the hits just keep on coming. We've got our guy, Howard Balzer, just a fountain of information when it comes to the NFL. I consider him to be one of the better historians when it comes to the history of the game. And we're going to have some fun with Howard. He is a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, also hosts on Sirius XM satellite radio, of course, doing great things for Cardinals Newswire. We're going to pick his brain on the Cardinals, preview that Saints-Cardinals matchup, but we're going to get into him about the Pro Football Hall of Fame eligible candidates for 2026, have a little bit of fun with that, discuss some of the top storylines heading into the 2025 NFL season. And that brings me to today's show, which is our NFL crystal ball predictions. And we're going to go around the league. We're going to do division predictions. Next segment, I'm going to have awards and individual predictions. Later on in the show, maybe we'll squeeze a Super Bowl prediction out of Howard. I'll also have my Super Bowl prediction. And the hits keep on coming later on this week. Tomorrow is the NFL kickoff. We'll have our residential Eagles insider, Kayla Santiago from Delmarva Sports. And we'll also have Friday, a Football Friday affair with my good friend Neil Stratton, CEO of InsideTheLeague.com, bringing you the rumblings from the scouting industry, the agent community. And Saturday, our guy Russ Landy's locked in every Saturday. We're going to do a college football preview with an NFL draft slant. This weekend, we got Oklahoma, Michigan, Illinois, Duke, a couple other games, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Illinois, or I think Iowa, Iowa State are on the docket. So we'll preview all the prospects there. Of course, Sunday, we'll do our week one game-by-game predictions. So buckle up for that. We love to get interactive with it, something we're trying to cultivate with this All Access Football Daily Show movement. Hey, drop us a line, whether you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe, get the show alerts. I see my good friend Tommy Goodhines already chiming in. Howard Balzer truly is a legend. I always tell our new writers and aspiring media industry folks, if you could have half the career of Howard Balzer, then you're doing a pretty good job. Over 4 decades of experience covering the National Football League. When it comes to NFL insiders, good luck finding a better one than Howard Balzer. That'll be at 10:40 a.m. Eastern time today. Now, I am broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore, a little bit of a somber mood for those of you tuning in the tri-state area. We had a 39-year-old Totowa man drown in the beach. The lifeguards are gone for the summer. Please, swim at your own risk means you can die, because by the time the first responders show up, it's too late, as was the case yesterday. So we don't mean to make light of the situation. We just want to create awareness. So many people just don't understand the power of the ocean. What about the power of allaccessfootball.com? Did you get down on it? We got the extended Labor Day sale going on, 30% discount there. RIC VIP, get down on it. Also, Royal Retros, 10% off. I'll drop the link in the chat room. And of course, it's all brought to you by Talking Sopranos, Michael Imperioli, Steven Sherpa, this Saturday, downtown Chicago, the Athenaeum Center. You want tickets? I got the exclusive VIP intimate hookup. Go email my guy, sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com, sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. Now, I am dog sitting. We got Kobe here, and he's missing me dearly, so hopefully he's not too much noise for you in the background. But let's get into some NFL predictions, and we'll start with a division by prediction. We'll come back in the B block and talk about individual awards and Super Bowl predictions. But let's just get a feel for the landscape as we go around the league. The AFC East, to me, this is one of the gimme divisions to predict because the Buffalo Bills, 13-4 a year ago, 525 points scored. This is a high-powered offense, solid defense. There are really no contenders in this division when you talk about the Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, and New England Patriots. I actually like the Patriots to have a big bounce back year. Okay, we'll talk about NFL Coach of the Year candidates in the next segment. Mike Vrabel being one of them. I think what they've done here in the offseason, they're going to turn around this 4-13 franchise. I think the Patriots could be in the battle for one of those last wild card playoff spots. I see the Patriots finishing ahead of both the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. I talked about it on yesterday's show. Miami has got a dark cloud cast over it. I don't like the vibes coming out. I don't like Mike McDaniel being on the hot seat coming into the year. Tyreek Hill not named the team captain for the first time since he's arrived in Miami. Trouble brewing in paradise. I'm not a believer in the Miami Dolphins. In fact, I think Mike McDaniel will not even survive the season. And, listen, Jets, they're going to be bottom of the barrel again, the lower third of the league. I don't see them contending for a playoff spot. Elijah Vera Tucker, I see, is hurt again. So, we'll see. The Justin Fields experiment, I'm actually an advocate of. I think Justin Fields will do well. I don't think the Jets will do so well. So I got the Bills, Patriots, Jets, and Dolphins in the AFC East. All right, AFC West, the other side of the country. This is not a gimme. This is actually, I believe, the toughest division in football. I see my guy Tom Goodhines, our number one Chiefs fan on the planet. Well, don't kill me, Tommy, because I don't see the Chiefs winning this division. I know 15-2 last year, I thought was an incredible job. It would have been the best coaching job of Andy Reid's career had they won the Super Bowl because, quite frankly, this was one of the more lackluster teams on paper, I felt. But somehow, week in, week out, they managed to pull the victories away. We talked about the Bills, 525 points scored. Chiefs only had 385, and they allowed 326. So very slim margin for error. Now, they were undefeated at home, 8-0 at Arrowhead Field a year ago. But watch out for those Bucking Broncos. I think Denver is really on the rise. 10-7 a year ago. Bo Nix really with another year of maturity. I could see Bo Nix being an MVP contender. I really do. I think Sean Payton has found his guy. He's cultivated a new atmosphere. He's brought in his type of personnel. And Denver is primed, I believe, to win this division. And the LA Chargers, I'll tell you what, they're going to have something to say about this race too. Now, they did have the O-line injury, with Rashawn Slater, I believe, out for the year. Joe Alt, originally planned for right tackle, will move to left tackle. I see double-digit wins from three organizations in the AFC West. I think this division is going to produce three playoff teams, I believe, in the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos. But I have them reverse order from a year ago: Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs. Raiders will be more competitive. They won 4 games a year ago. I'm not a big believer in Geno Smith. I think there's going to be some lumps to be had. They'll probably win some games they shouldn't. They'll probably lose some games they should win. And, the Raiders are going to keep that basement warm there in the AFC West. All right, moving over to the AFC North, another highly competitive division. But Baltimore, this team is really, really well-rounded. And you talk about 518 points for, 361 points against. They win. They can win by big margins. They can win in shootouts. They can win defensively. They can win throwing the ball. They can win running the ball. If this Baltimore Ravens team stays healthy, and that's a big if, especially with Lamar Jackson, they should have no problem repeating the AFC North division winners once again. Now, I think Pittsburgh is going to be competitive like they always are. 10-7 a year ago. We know Mike Tomlin doesn't produce losing seasons. I don't think they will this year either. Aaron Rodgers is going to hold the keys to the Cadillac there in Pittsburgh. Stacked, loaded, talented team. DK Metcalf. They just extended Jalen Warren to pair with their rookie Caleb Johnson. They've also got TJ Watt on the defensive side of the ball, along with Darius Slay, just playmakers all over the field. Will they acquire a number 2 wide receiver? Come on, Kobe, pipe down. Will they acquire a number 2 wide receiver is the big question. Gabe Davis, I failed to mention, did sign with Buffalo. He'll start off on the practice squad. He reunites with Josh Allen there. Pittsburgh's still in the hunt. Could they go over after the Cheetah? I think the Cheetah would really show that Pittsburgh is all in. In the meantime, I have them pegged for number 2 in the AFC North, and right behind them, the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, this team always gets off to a slow start. And that has been the downfall because they start in such a hole year after year after year. Is this the year that they can start off on the right track? I don't know. Trey Hendrickson, that dragged out about as long as any hold in or hold out that there was. They were 9-8 a year ago. They lost. They gave away home field advantage. Only 3 wins at home, 6 wins on the road. Bengals got to do better at home, better to start the season. I have them out on the outside looking in. When you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback, you're always going to have a shot to win the championship. He's up there. I don't want to say he's up there with a John Elway or a Dan Marino, but he's the type of quarterback that is always going to give you a puncher's chance. As long as you have Joe Burrow, you've got a chance to win the game. And if the Bengals get in, they've got as good a chance as anybody. I just don't believe in the consistency. I don't believe in the organizational philosophy. And I think there's a trickle-down effect there in the locker room. And I'm not saying there's a schism. I'm just saying keep an eye on the chemistry there in Cincinnati. So I've got Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and then the Browns, who are predicted to have the worst record in the league, according to Las Vegas, 3-14. They were right there a year ago. I think Jersey Joe Flacco, aside from the quarterback position, there is some talent on this roster. So I think Jersey Joe Flacco can produce a couple of W's on the board. But, I don't know, not more than 4 or 5 wins on the season for the Cleveland Browns. They'll be picking atop the NFL draft once again. And they bypassed on a talent like Travis Hunter, which was just shocking to me because I've been covering the NFL draft for 24 years in search of a talent such as Travis Hunter, and Cleveland bypassed that opportunity. And that's what bad organizations do. No plan at quarterback, we'll bring in 5. That's what terrible organizations do. I don't like the vision. I don't like, again, the organizational philosophy. And, maybe some of those Ivy League scholars they got hanging out in the Cleveland front office can hire some real football men to come in and straighten out the mess, the mistake by the lake that is the Cleveland Browns. Now, I did see they brought back Bernie Kosar in some sort of capacity, advising the team. That was good to see. So we're happy for that. But it's going to be another brown bag season for Cleveland. All right, AFC South. This is the Houston Texans team, division to lose, 10-7 a year ago. They played good in the playoffs. They pretty much have the same team intact, a young nucleus led by C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, Nico Collins, Derek Stingley. Nick Caserio has done an excellent job stockpiling this roster with talent in the NFL draft. So I expect the Houston Texans to win this division. I will call the Jacksonville Jaguars a sleeper. I was a little bit skeptical at first about the babyface James Gladstone as new general manager, but we just mentioned Travis Hunter. He made a bold move, and I like that. He's got cajoons. He's not afraid to go outside the grain. He's not afraid of the outside noise. He's not afraid of the howling at the moon at night. And so, Jacksonville, could they be a sleeper? 4-13 a year ago. They buckled under the Trevor Lawrence injury. He seems to be healthy now. And, they're trying to find their way, as are a lot of these teams in the AFC South. The Tennessee Titans will be much more competitive with Cam Ward. I expect a little bit of a roller coaster ride with the ups and downs as Cam Ward acclimates himself to the National Football League. I'm expecting a big year, career year out of Calvin Ridley. They've developed a really nice rapport there. And the Indianapolis Colts, they don't have an identity because their quarterback situation is a disaster. This was, again, a bad contingency plan. Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, pick your poison. The Colts are in trouble. All right. And I noticed the Colts got a lot of players shut out with the NFL top 100 list that came out. Another topic we're going to hit with Howard Balzer coming up at 10:40 a.m. Eastern. But for me, it's the Texans, it's the Jaguars, it's the Colts, and then it's the Titans. The Titans will be in position to maybe select another franchise player in next year's draft. They've got a stout interior defensive line with Simmons and Sweat, a couple of pieces there, but Titans still a year away from really pushing for a playoff spot. All right, let's go over to the NFC. We'll go NFC East, Eagles, Commanders, Giants, Cowboys. The Cowboys are headed for the basement. I think the Giants and Cowboys flip-flop the positions here. Giants, a lot of optimism, a lot of new players, new faces, bringing in a different mentality. Brian Daboll looks rejuvenated. Jackson Dart is the guy. It's just a matter of when, not if. I've been saying it since he got drafted. Week 5 against the Saints seems like the ideal time for Jackson Dart era to start. And so I'm looking forward to that. Russell Wilson is no gimme here. You know, a lot of people here in New York just assume Russell Wilson is going to come in and steer the ship. They've got the toughest schedule in the league. I believe the Giants could be 0-4 heading into that New Orleans Saints matchup. But by season's end, I see 5, 6, maybe as many as 8 or 9 wins for the New York Giants. I think Vegas is sleeping on the big blue wrecking crew. All right, Commanders, you know, they're going to be a tough out. They're going to face the G-Men here in week 1. Eagles, Cowboys tomorrow night. So you'll have 2 teams 1-0, 2 teams 0-1 early on in the season in the NFC East. But the Eagles are the most complete team in the NFL. All right, the NFC West. I like the Rams. Rams and Seahawks actually tied for this division last year at 10-7. Rams are built Ram tough, but Matthew Stafford's back. It sounds like it's going to be an ongoing issue this season. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo is there to break the glass in case of an emergency. As long as Stafford holds up, the Rams will be a steady contender there. And so Devontae Adams was brought in to pair with Puka Nacua, of course, Cooper Kupp off to Seattle. And so Arizona, who we'll talk with Howard Balzer, 10:40 a.m. Eastern, they're going to be knocking on that playoff door. I think they're in the mix here, as are the San Francisco 49ers, who finished a terrible 6-11 a year ago. Of course, they were bombarded with injuries, most notably Christian McCaffrey, who, according to our guy Brian Baldinger, he looks like he did 2 years ago. So that is a positive development for the 49ers and their new $50 million man, Brock Purdy. However, I don't know. I got the 49ers on the outside looking in at the playoff race. The receivers are all banged up, no depth at the wideout position. You heard our guy Thor Nystrom say Ricky Pearsall is in line for a big, big year, and I agree with those sentiments. All right, NFC North. This is probably the toughest division in the NFC side. Detroit went 15-2 a year ago. The Vikings were very impressive, 14-3, staying undefeated well into the season. The Packers 11-6. I mean, that's 40 wins between those 3 teams alone. I think all 3 will be in contention once again. I'm not buying what Ben Johnson is selling in Chicago. I understand the preseason results were full of positivity, but you know, some guys just seem better suited as coordinators. And I'm not so sure Ben Johnson's cut out to be a head coach. That's a story I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I could see Caleb Williams struggling to grasp the offense. And at some point, Tyson Bagent, I believe, is going to have a factor in the Chicago Bears 2025 campaign. He may actually outplay Caleb Williams if given the opportunity. Rick Saratella, so you know who said it. All right, NFC South. Well, I didn't give you my prediction. I like the Vikings here. I think J.J. McCarthy was an upgrade over Sam Darnold. Give me the Vikings. Then give me the Lions. They lost a lot of coaching, so their continuity has some question marks there. I think they take a step back. The Packers, they'll be right around double-digit wins again. There could be 3 teams in this NFC North that get into the playoffs here. All right, NFC South. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won this division the last 4 years. I think it'll take a miracle for them not to win it again. I know they're a little bit banged up too. Tristan Wirfs, their all-pro left tackle, is going to miss some time. But Baker Mayfield, to me, is a top 10 NFL quarterback. They drafted Emeka Egbuka, who's going to slide in there and be a Rookie of the Year candidate. Believe me when I tell you. Defense is stellar with Todd Bowles. This is the Bucs division all day long. I think Atlanta will be very competitive. They'll be right in the hunt, maybe even sneak into the playoffs. Nobody's a bigger fan than Michael Penix than myself, although I think first year as a starter, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Bijan Robinson will definitely be in contention for the MVP race. He's going to have a big bust-out year. Atlanta's got some weapons now with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So watch out for their offense. We shall see with the defense. They brought in Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., try to improve that pass rush. So I think Atlanta is clearly the number 2 team here. And then pick your poison with the Panthers and Saints. These are, to me, in my opinion, the 2 worst teams in all of the NFL. They will be competing probably for that number 1 overall pick. And I think the Saints are going to be the first pick overall. And it'll be interesting because Garrett Nussmeier, could he reunite with his dad, Doug Nussmeier, down there in New Orleans? It might actually be a better scenario than what we've been predicting in Arch Manning, and we talked about that on Monday's edition. All right, so that's your division predictions here on this Crystal Ball edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. We're live each and every day, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, daily show, 7 days. Rick Saratella, so you know who said it, All Access Football. We're broadcasting live from the world-famous Jersey Shore All Access Football Studios. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When I come back, I'm going to give you my Super Bowl prediction along with my individual awards prediction. So don't go anywhere. Hey, RIC in the place to be. Rick Saratella for the world famous All Access Football Report, read by 32 NFL teams, over 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world. Checking in here from the legendary Jersey Shore, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show. It's been a long working process. It's been 3 years since I've been on hiatus from a daily talk show. I've grown significantly, a lot of trial and tribulations during that span. The growth personally and maturity professionally is coming into your living room, raw, unfiltered, unapologetic, real football talk. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the content. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Buckle up. It's a can't stop, won't stop situation. We'll be with you every day, 7 days a week, Sunday through Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. The football universe flows through my veins, and I'll tell you what, we've got a locked and loaded guest lineup here for you throughout the week, so don't go anywhere. Give us a visit over at allaccessfootball.com. We have a great promo sale going on for our listening audience. RIC VIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of allaccessfootball.com. You can follow the link in the chat room below. We love to get interactive with it. Drop us a line. Give us a shout. You got questions, we got answers. It's Rick Saratella, so you know who said it. Telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin. Since 2002, it's our 24th season of independent coverage, and we welcome you aboard, everybody. All right, we're back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Rick Saratella, telling it like it is when it comes to NFL draft, everything pigskin, your home for real football talk. Buckle up. It's our third episode here on the September 3rd, 2025 edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. We kicked it off on Monday with a look around the college football landscape. On Tuesday, we had Thor Nystrom talking fantasy football, preparing you for all your last-second fantasy football drafts later on tonight, like myself. Today, we've got Howard Balzer joining us in about 15 minutes or so to talk around the league, Arizona Cardinals, Pro Football Hall of Fame candidates for this upcoming class. It's going to be a phenomenal segment, so stay tuned for the C block. Tomorrow, we have our residential Eagles insider, Kayla Santiago, the AP award-winning producer and director from Delmarva Sports, of course, a Philadelphia native. And Friday is a Football Friday affair with my guy Neil Stratton, InsideTheLeague.com. It's going to give you the rumblings from the agent industry, the scouting community. And then Saturday, my guy Russell Landy, longtime scout, will be joining me each and every Saturday for a college football preview show with the NFL draft slant. So Oklahoma, Michigan, Illinois, Duke, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Iowa State. We're going to preview those prospects on Saturday, and Sunday we'll do game by game NFL predictions against the spread with the lines. We'll do the best we can. I consider myself to be one of the best handicappers in the world. We'll put it to the test as the season goes on. I saw Tom Goodhines keep picking against the Chiefs. You're right. It burns me every time. It's something I don't do. In fact, I'll give you a sneak peek. I have the Chiefs to beat the Chargers on Friday night football, but we'll get down to that a little bit more on Friday. Right now, I'm going to give you my NFL predictions as I rub my crystal balls here at the Jersey Shore and look deep, deep, deep into the future as we flip the calendar into January and February. Who will be the NFL MVP? To me, the most valuable player will be in Baltimore. They have two candidates now, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. But the pulse of this Ravens roster, the heartbeat, is Lamar Jackson. When he's healthy, which he did a pretty good job of doing, staying healthy last year, he's the most dangerous player in the NFL, I believe. Now, he's come up short in the playoffs. Big hole on his career resume. You know, a Super Bowl ring maybe could put Lamar Jackson in that Hall of Fame conversation 10 years from now. We shall see. But right now, you know, I'm going chalk with Lamar Jackson. NFL Defensive Player of the Year. We talked about the back issue, the cortisone shots, the epidural that might be needed for him to play. I think Micah Parsons is going to play through it. He's going to play like a man on a mission. He's going to return big dividends for the Green Bay Packers. This is one of the biggest trades in NFL history, in my opinion. He's going to have a Reggie White type of impact. Is it going to be big enough for him to take it the distance, for the Packers to run the table? We shall see. They've got a great young nucleus on the offensive side of the ball, some veterans on the defensive side of the ball with Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney, playmakers at all three levels. I'm not sleeping on the Packers. In fact, I had them going to the Super Bowl last year, maybe a year too early. I've took my foot off the gas pedal on them. I want to see Jordan Love do it and do it well. But, you know, Micah Parsons is my pick for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. And if you guys got picks too, please chime in. I'd love to hear what you think in the chat room. Again, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Smash that like button, share it, subscribe it, get the new show alerts. We appreciate the love and support. NFL Offensive Player of the Year, which usually goes to the best offensive player who's not a quarterback. That's kind of what this award has become. Jamar Chase would be a contender, but I'm going to go Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson is going to prove to you why he was viewed as such a franchise running back, a first-round pick. You know, I mentioned yesterday, like I didn't view Ashton Genty in the same category as Bijan Robinson or even a Jamar Gibbs coming out. This is a really unique talent. In fact, if there's going to be a running back that comes close to replicating what Saquon Barkley did a year ago, it's going to be Bijan Robinson, and you're going to see him run left, run right, catch over the middle. He does it all. And so I like Bijan. He wanted to make it clear. Pass the Bijan Robinson for my NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Now, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, if you tuned into the Sports Rage podcast with me yesterday, my guy Gabriel Morency We also did some predictions, and you may have heard me say that I believe Omarion Hampton is going to be the NFL Rookie of the Year. It's not going to be Cam Ward. It's not going to be Ashton Genty. It could be Emeka Ibuka. He would be my number 2 choice, but I'm going with Omarion Hampton, even with Najee Harris being 100% cleared. I don't know if he's going to play on Friday or not, but even with Najee Harris in the mix, I think this is going to be Omarion Hampton's backfield to dominate. I think he's going to run wild. I see well over 1,000 rushing yards. He could be a factor in the passing game as well. Give me Omarion Hampton with the plus money for NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay. Now, if you tuned into the New and Blue Giants podcast on Monday, a New York Giants podcast that we do each and every Monday with my co-host Dan Orlando, then you know I'm very high on Abdul Carter Jr. and for very good reason. I saw him up close in person at Giants training camp. This is a grown man amongst boys. I mean, he is going to do damage. I see double-digit sacks for the rookie pass rusher, which would put him in rarefied air. You know, there's some talk this week against the Commanders on Sunday. He could even drop back and shadow Jaden Daniels. We'll see him in that capacity as well. But Abdul Carter, he's going to make a significant impact on the defensive side of the ball. And a guy like Travis Hunter, I think, could somewhat hurt him playing both sides of the ball to win one of these awards because his reps or snaps could be divvied up. So when you're playing part offense, part defense, you know, Travis Hunter, I don't know, it's kind of hard to put him in the equation for me. How about NFL Coach of the Year? I kind of foreshadowed this in the A block. You know, Pittsburgh and New England to me are going to be the 2 teams fighting for that last wild card spot. Already what Mike Vrabel has done before they even take in the field is set the tone. I mean, he's cutting Jabril Peppers, he's cutting top draft picks, he's cutting guys that had key roles on the roster last year. It's like, this is Mike Vrabel's show. Don't get it twisted. And I think what he's going to do is show you why they paid him the big bucks to come to New England and steer the ship. I could see Mike Vrabel winning that NFL Coach of the Year. How about NFL Comeback Player of the Year? A lot of good candidates to choose from. J.J. McCarthy stands out as one. But to me, when I picked the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, I always felt like you got to come back from something of significance. And J.J. McCarthy has not done anything of significance in the NFL. So what exactly would he be coming back from? Just his health? To me, that's not enough to give him the award. In fact, I'm going to go Nick Chubb here. Nick Chubb with the rebound, bounce back season. Joe Mixon's going to miss extended period of time. I mentioned to you yesterday, I like this Woody Marks out of USC. I think he's a weapon, more of a slot weapon than a running weapon, but it's going to be a committee approach. I could see Chubb getting 15 to 20 carries a game, and at that rate, with this 4 yards a rush, he's going to have a very productive year for the Houston Texans and kind of hold the fort until if Mixon gets back. He's my choice for NFL Comeback Player of the Year. All right, last segment. I ran through all the divisions, gave you my division winners, told you who I think will sneak into the playoffs, some teams on the brink. Now, let me rub those crystal balls. AFC Championship. I'm looking deep into the future now. We're talking January football. And I told you Tommy Goodhines is going to kill me, but I told you the Denver Broncos are not only going to win the AFC West, they're going to dance right into the AFC Championship where they're going to meet the wall of the Baltimore Ravens defense, the 1-2 tandem of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. The Baltimore Ravens are just too much to handle. I don't care if it's Buffalo. I don't care if it's Kansas City. You want to throw Denver and LA in the mix, that's fine. When the dust settles, I think the Baltimore Ravens will finally get to the big dance. Lamar Jackson, can he win the big one? I'll tell you that with my Super Bowl prediction. But first, we got to rub some more crystal balls down here and come up with the NFL NFC Championship prediction. And, you know, listen, Philadelphia Eagles just are too good. I see them winning 13 regular season games, maybe 14 regular season games, and being back in the NFC Championship. And I think they take care of business once again The LA Rams almost beat them in Philly a year ago in the snow, if you remember. I think we're going to have a playoff rematch between the Eagles and Rams in the NFC Championship, with your Philadelphia world champion Eagles advancing to the Super Bowl once again to take on those Baltimore Ravens. So drum roll, please. Can we build the drama? Who will win Super Bowl LX? Well, I've got the Eagles back in the mix, and it's hard to pick against them. But when you've been to the mountaintop and experienced the pinnacle, sometimes you get knocked off the block by a hungrier team. And this Ravens team is starving. They're hungry. They've got something to prove. John Harbaugh has not won a Super Bowl in quite some time. This will be the icing on the cake for his resume. I saw Isaiah Likely popped up with an injury, may not play this week. But the 2026 Super Bowl LX, I believe, will be Baltimore over Philadelphia. You heard it here first. Rick Saratella for All Access Football, your home for real football talk. We're live 7 days a week. Our third episode here on this September 3rd, 2025. Remember, it's all brought to you by Talking Sopranos, coming to Chicago this Saturday downtown at the Athenaeum Center. Michael Imperioli, Steven Sherpa. Make sure you holler at my guy. sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. sopranosbookingagent@gmail.com. You see it. I have it on the ticker here. Hit him up. He's going to hook you up. VIP exclusive. You never know who might be in the building. And, of course, the All Access Football Labor Day promo sale has been extended. RIC VIP, 30% off the website, unlocks the magic. Our NFL Draft Insider. We got the All Access Football Report being posted later on today. Of course, we had the Scout Notebook on Monday. And it's just a can't stop, won't stop situation as you count you down to the 2026 NFL Draft destination, Pittsburgh, 238 days away. Buckle up for that. And hunker down for our C block, because we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Howard Balzer in the house. Hey, RIC in the place to be. Rick Saratella for the world-famous All Access Football Report, read by 32 NFL teams, over 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world. Checking in here from the legendary Jersey Shore, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show. It's been a long working process. It's been 3 years since I've been on hiatus from a daily talk show. I've grown significantly, a lot of trial and tribulations during that span. The growth personally and maturity professionally is coming into your living room, raw, unfiltered, unapologetic, real football talk. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the content. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Buckle up. It's a can't stop, won't stop situation. We'll be with you every day, 7 days a week, Sunday through Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. The football universe flows through my veins, and I'll tell you what, we've got a locked and loaded guest lineup here for you throughout the week, so don't go anywhere. Give us a visit over at allaccessfootball.com. We have a great promo sale going on for our listening audience. RIC VIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of allaccessfootball.com. You can follow the link in the chat room below. We love to get interactive with it. Drop us a line. Give us a shout. You got questions, we got answers. It's Rick Saratella, so you know who said it. Telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL Draft and everything pigskin. Since 2002, it's our 24th season of independent coverage, and we welcome you aboard, everybody. All right, back at it again. RIC in the place to be. Breaking it down, chopping it up on the All Access Football Daily Show. We're here live 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's our third episode here on the September 3rd, 2025. We're rubbing the crystal balls today. We gave you the division predictions in the A block. We just gave you individual team predictions, Super Bowl predictions, player award predictions. My next guest is going to join us, talk about some of the top NFL storylines. We're going to dive into the NFL Top 100. Of course, I'm always intrigued by the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection process, and he is a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, host of Sirius XM Radio, of course, doing great things over at the Cardinals Wire for USA Today. He joins me right now. Howard Balzer on the show. H-Bomb, what's happening?
Man, it's great to be with you. Congrats on the new show.
Thank you.
We should just devote some time with all these hours. We should devote not a full show, but a much longer time talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the process and all those things. We should do that.
We do. We need to do that for sure because Drew Brees is up, Phillip Rivers is up, and
Larry Fitzgerald, Jason Witten. I mean, it's just getting harder and harder to get guys into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame itself made it even harder with the way they changed their process for this 2025 class, which I believe a lot of people out there don't even realize.
That's right.
I
was actually reading up on that yesterday, and we got from the beach to the desert. Howard's checking in from the desert out there in Arizona. Let's start with the Pro Football Hall of Fame criteria, the selection process, some of the new rule changes, because you're right. I myself am just finding out as well. So tell the listening audience at home.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, so I'll try to encapsulate this as succinctly as possible, which with me can be pretty hard. I want to get all the info out there. And I'm sure there were people when they were watching NFL Honors and saw that there were 4 gentlemen who went on the stage to be enshrined, and they were saying, okay, who's next? Who's next? And there was no next. And that's because what the Hall of Fame did was, in the past, when we had our candidates in one bucket, if you will, for the coach, contributor, and 3 seniors guys, and then the 15 modern day players, which was a separate bucket, what they did was on those first 5, we would vote individually on each one, and they had to get 80%. With the modern day guys, we cut from 15 to 10 to 5, and then voted individually on those 5. Well, the Hall of Fame, in its infinite wisdom, decided, let's change that, right? And so with the modern day guys, we voted to 7 instead of 5 from 10, and then we all had to vote for 5 of the 7. Well, you know what happens there? When you have 49, 59 people voting, there's vote splits all over the place, and it's hard to get to 80%. And that's why there are only 3 modern day guys instead of the usual 5. With the other group, which they had spent a decade adding to the seniors finalists to get 3, separating the coach and the contributors from them all to get 1 in each category. Now we had them all in one bucket, and we had to vote for 3. And so once again, we had vote splitting, and only 1 senior got in, which of course was Sterling Sharp. So there's your class of 4 instead of what would normally be 8 or 9, whatever it might be. And I'll tell you something, Rick, it affected the crowd in Canton because the enshrinement ceremony was highlighted by empty seats in Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. And so that's the way it went. The Hall of Fame said, well, we thought it would be, and they had a minimum of 1 and 3 for those groups. Many have said, well, at least make the minimum 2 and 4, or make it 75% instead of 80. And they said, well, we thought it would be 2 and 4. Well, what do you mean you thought? Did you talk to a mathematician out there? It's easy to plug that thing and find out what the probability is of getting more people. Well, they said, well, this might be an outlier, so that we're going to do it again the same way. And that in a nutshell is what happened. And like we said, with those first-time eligible guys coming in, it was already a very, very difficult process to be elected. Now it's even harder, and more guys are going to wait if this continues. More guys are going to get pushed to that seniors, what we call the abyss, because there's so many excellent players in there. And again, I don't have, as you talk about, crystal balls, right? which I think is fitting that you're doing this show talking about crystal balls and doing a promo for The Sopranos. Somehow that fits together very well. But I don't have crystal balls, but I think just common sense says that unless there's some changes, we're going to continue with these smaller classes, which I don't think is the best way for the Hall of Fame to go.
We're talking to Howard Balzer, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, and I'm just curious, Howard. I know the Pro Football Hall of Fame went under relatively new leadership. Are they not asking for feedback from individuals such as yourself who are on the voter panel for how this process should be conducted? Because you guys have been doing this for quite some time. Are they not getting that feedback, or are these independent decisions being made? I don't know how much you can elaborate on that.
Well, the interesting thing, Rick, is that in that previous decade, which I mentioned, when they separated the contributors and separated the coaches eventually, which they were competing against modern day players, a lot of that was done on our suggestion. Then when they increased the seniors finalists from an alternating 1 or 2 each year to 3, they talked to all of us. In fact, we had a very long Zoom meeting with most of the selectors where we talked it all out, and they came up with going to 3. Well, for this change, it was all of a sudden dropped on everyone about 2 weeks after the enshrinement last year. And we didn't have a Zoom. Then maybe they talked to some individual guys beforehand. I don't know, but I'm sure if they had, they would have gotten some serious pushback from it. And all of a sudden they made this announcement and created this blue ribbon committee that would cut the nominee list, which was really, I think, not a big deal because most of the same guys are still going to be on that list. But that final aspect of it, they buried on the bottom of the announcement. And even some of us on the committee didn't realize it and notice it right away. And so that's and it's amazing, Rick. Like I said, how many times that I've talked to people about this and they said, I don't realize that. And I'll give you a quick one. In Canton, I had a conversation with a couple of Hall of Famers and in the lobby area, and we started talking about this. They didn't know how it changed. And when I said I'm very troubled by this, they said, well, gosh, I didn't realize that. I can understand what you're talking about. So it's like I said, and again, you look at those first time guys, the year after next, this one coming up, we've got Adrian Peterson will be eligible. Ben Roethlisberger will be eligible. I don't have all those names in front of me right now, but the first time eligibles was crazy. The one thing they did in this last class is if you made that final 7, and there were 4 guys that did, who obviously did not get elected, and that was Torrey Holt, Willie Anderson, and 2 first-time guys, Adam Vinatieri and Luke Kuechly. If you didn't make that, you automatically get into the final 15 the following year. Well, most of those guys return anyway. They return to that final group. And the other part of it that I talk about all the time is how it's making it difficult. Just do the simple math. 3 guys get in. That means there's 12 finalists that didn't. Most of them are probably coming back to be finalists. Then you have all these first-time eligibles, which will take up some spots and could knock somebody out of that final 15 that was in this past year. And what does that also create? No opportunity for someone else who's maybe been a little bit overlooked in the semifinalists to make it into the 15 and even be discussed among everyone when we get together at some point in January. So those are all real aspects of this. And I think that, like I said, from the very start, it is just making it, everyone wants it to be hard. I get that. But don't make it crazy hard when you have a sport that has so many players, right? More players than any other sport. And it's hard to compare sometimes, obviously, because you have all the different positions that you have to keep in mind. But for an already very difficult process, where, by the way, I did this study at one point, Rick, aside from first-time eligibles, the average wait in years of eligibility, not in being a finalist, the average wait for a player once he becomes eligible is 9 years. That's the average. Right? So it already was a very difficult process. And to make it even harder, in my mind and many people's minds, makes 0 sense.
Yeah, when you break it all down like that, it's going to be even more difficult. And you talk about the log jams. You mentioned Torrey Holt has been waiting. There's quite a few receivers. Reggie Wayne, did he get in yet? I don't know.
Reggie Wayne didn't. In fact, Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne have been kind of at loggerheads the last few years, and they've both been a finalist the same number of times, which is 6. And in the last couple of years, Torrey Holt advanced to the 10, and Reggie Wayne did not. And then this past year, Torrey Holt advanced to the 7, but of course didn't get the 80%. And now you have Larry Fitzgerald entering the mix. And you had Steve Smith Sr., who became a finalist for the first time this past year, been waiting on the outside. Who knows how long it'll take, for him. And so, like you said, there's these log jams at receiver. There's log jams a lot of times at edge rusher, sometimes on the offensive line. And it's very difficult to separate, well, who's the Hall of Famer and who isn't. But it comes down, like I said, to a vote. Think of it this way, 50 people, right? So you've got to get 40 votes when you get to the 7 to be elected. So that means it takes only 11, voting for someone else for someone not to get in. And so, like I said, it makes me shake my head. I don't know if there's that many other selectors who are as passionate about it as me. I'm sure there are, but I like to spread the word about it because, like I said, the main thing is there's so many that don't realize what the Hall of Fame did to make this such a small class this past summer.
Well, that's why we bring you on, the passion, the real football talk. Howard Balzer, Rick Saratella here, talking Pro Football Hall of Fame. We had a lot of topics. I don't know how much we'll get covered here, but I wanted to talk about the log jams because last year Eli Manning did not get in. This year, Philip Rivers is eligible in addition to Drew Brees. So I don't want to assume anything, but I'm thinking Drew Brees is somewhat of a lock here, which begs my next question. You mentioned Big Ben next year, like this 2004 quarterback class. Now there could be a waiting line between Eli Manning, Philip Rivers, Big Ben Roethlisberger. I guess my question to you is, if I were to ask you to compare Philip Rivers' career, which statistically speaking is superior to Eli Manning's, but Eli Manning has the 2 Super Bowl victories, how would you compare or contrast those 2 careers?
Great question. And I'll first say with Eli, it was one of the more robust discussions we've had, because he did make to the final 15, that we've had in many years because of a lot of difference of opinion. On one bucket, you have the 2 Super Bowls, right? Which I always argue it's a team sport. Granted, quarterbacks are a big part of it, but it's a team sport. And so to just say, team didn't get to the Super Bowl, team didn't get to the Super Bowl with this guy at quarterback, like Philip Rivers never got there. So are you going to ping him because they would lose to the Colts or the Patriots with Manning and Brady every year? But I look at it this way, Rick, in terms of evaluating. I look at guys and just look at their pure ability and say, if you were picking one of those guys, what order would you pick those guys, knowing what we know now in terms of starting a team? And I might pick Philip Rivers over those other 2 guys, Manning and Roethlisberger. It's close, but I loved what Philip Rivers accomplished. Yes, he had Antonio Gates for most of his career, but other than that, they weren't a great team. And they had LaDainian Tomlinson, but there were times when he was injured. I remember one playoff year where he hurt his knee and couldn't play in a huge playoff game, and the Chargers lost. One time they lost to the Patriots when they had the game won, and Tom Brady threw an interception. Oh my God, you mean the God threw an interception in a big part of the game? Threw an interception, which clinched the game for the Chargers, and a defensive back on San Diego wanted to be a hero and tried to run it back instead of just going to the ground, fumbled. The Patriots got it back and went down the field and scored and knocked the Chargers out of the playoffs. Well, is that Philip Rivers' fault? Obviously not. And so that's my feeling on those 3 guys. I think they're all Hall of Fame worthy, but it's going to be difficult. And by the way, Eli Manning did not even make the initial reduction to 10 in the vote after from the 15. And one of the comments was, well, if there was a Super Bowl for if there was a Hall of Fame for the Super Bowl, maybe Eli Manning would get in on that. But the full breadth of his career comes up a bit short, and that's the way the vote went. Who knows how it'll go coming down the pike? But as we've been talking about, as more first-time guys get in, as there's more effort to get guys who have been around a long time, like this year, Eric Allen going in, being elected in his next to last year of modern-day eligibility, where if he hadn't got in last year, and then this year he'd go to that seniors group. There was a push for both those things, both those areas. Yeah, like I said, it's just going to get harder and harder and make for incredibly difficult decisions that we have to make after sometimes very lengthy discussions among the committee.
I know these are very intense debates and presentations, and you guys go around the room. I would think maybe Bob Glauber would be the guy who would present Eli Manning's case. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I'm just curious. Can you share how long of a conversation that was, and was it the longest conversation of any draft eligible?
It was the longest by far. It was close to an hour, and Bob Glauber did make the initial presentation, and then was joined by Gary Myers, who's also from New York, and both those guys were very passionate in support of Eli Manning. Bob has left the committee for 2026, and Gary will still be on it, and then Rich Cimini from Newsday will join it. But yes, they were very positive for him. And one selector pointed out in all of Eli Manning's years, those guys never voted for Eli Manning for All-Pro. Never once in his career did he even not even be named All-Pro, but didn't even get a vote for All-Pro. And that carried some weight in the discussion. So, like I said, we'll see how it goes, down the road. But I hate to repeat myself, but it's just going to get harder and harder unless there are some changes. But last year wouldn't have helped Eli if the process was different, because he didn't even make it to the reduction to 10.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that if he ever gets in, it'll be a very, very long wait for Eli Manning. All right, one last guy I want to ask you. We'll talk some Cardinals here. Bill Belichick is going to be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'm just curious, he's down there in North Carolina. It didn't go too well in that opening game. It looks like it could be a long season. We're talking about an individual who really, you talk about Eli Manning in the 2 seasons, the Road Warriors, they run the table, they win all the road games, they win 2 Super Bowl championships. Well, here's a guy in Bill Belichick who really hasn't won without Tom Brady. I mean, he was a loser in Cleveland. He couldn't win post Tom Brady. The North Carolina situation, it feels like he's somewhat tarnishing his image. I'm curious to get your opinion, Howard. And it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction. Does that even carry any weight? I mean, is there a human element factor involved when this process comes about? Like, tell me about Bill Belichick's candidacy.
I don't think whatever happens in college carries weight. And yes, and the interesting thing, if you really go back and look at what happened with Belichick in Cleveland, they had a playoff season, and he was starting to build and turn that thing around when Art Modell, basically threw everybody under the bus with all the talk about the team moving, and then, as I recall, they announced that during the season, and the season just went to hell after that. And so, but I don't know how many people considered what he did as a defensive coordinator, because that's part of a coaching career, and they were in the Super Bowls, then not only on his defenses, but it was a big part of it. So I don't think that will tarnish it. I do think that there should be, and the Hall of Fame has gone back and forth on this. At one point, there wasn't a wait to get into the Hall of Fame after a coach retired. And then Bill Parcells promised people on the committee that he's not coming back, and he was up for election, and it ended up he didn't get elected, but then came back after being out however long time that was. And so, but then after that, they changed it to a coach also being out for 5 years after he retires. And now they've changed it back to 1 year being out. Maybe it shouldn't be 5, but maybe it should be longer than 1. And so he's going to be eligible, according to the again, another change. He's going to be eligible for the 2026 class. But whatever happens with North Carolina, I mean, that's college football. I mean, he's taken over a program that was a middling program, have brought in. It's amazing how many people have, as they've loved to jump on him for this one game, as if no team has ever been blown out in a college football game. But I don't hear anybody saying, well, they brought in 70 new players, right? And to think that I don't care who the coach is, you do that, And it's going to be tough to get off to a good start, especially when you're playing a better team, a more experienced team, and a faster team than you have. But whatever happens the rest of this year, I don't see that affecting his candidacy for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because you can argue it was done with Brady, which is obviously true, but they still got it done. And let me say this. There were times when Tom Brady did not play that well in the postseason or whatever it might be. And a lot of what they accomplished was because of the way he ran his program and for how good that defense was, with not a lot of, actually, Rick, not a lot of Hall of Fame players on that defense, but they played great team defense. And that's what Bill Belichick fostered there in that environment in New England. Obviously, it didn't end well, but hey, for a lot of coaches, it hasn't ended well. You look at Jimmy Johnson. I mean, his last game in the NFL as a head coach, what did they lose to Jacksonville when he was with Miami? I think it was like 61-7 or something like that in the playoff. It was just crazy. So for a lot of coaches, it hasn't ended well. But if they have a great resume, then they're going to get in at some point. But again, it's tougher now for coaches. I mean, Mike Holmgren, a lot of coaches have been waiting for a long time. Mike Holmgren, Mike Shanahan, other guys have been in that mix for coaches, and Holmgren was the coach finalist this current year and didn't get the 80%. And the other thing is, we don't know how close he was to 80%. Was he 1 vote away? Was he 2 votes away? That's the one thing we never know in this voting, how close someone was to not making those reductions and then not getting the 80%.
Valid points. We're talking to Howard Balzer, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. And yeah, thinking back to that Patriots dynasty, like Richard Seymour got in. Guys like Randy Moss and Darrelle Revis didn't really spend the majority of their career in New England. I don't really recall too many guys. Obviously, Tom Brady will get in.
Ty Law got in from that.
Ty Law, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, but I mean, for winning 6 Super Bowls and just to have 2 current members of that Pro Football Hall of Fame is a kudos to Bill Belichick and what he did there in New England. All right. We're going to go a little bit over time, about 5 more minutes with you, Howard, or so, talk some Cardinals because you're doing great things for the Cardinals wire. Last segment, I talked about the Wild Wild West, which is the NFC. Seahawks and Rams tied for first, 10-7 a year ago. I see the Seahawks maybe taking a step back. The 49ers were banged up with injuries. The Cardinals, I see vastly improved. I really like what they did in the draft, building inside the trenches. Kyler Murray, when he's right, is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. They've got a ground and pound attack, but it just, to me, when I look at it on paper, it lacks playmakers, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., more of a possession wideout. Do they have people that can stretch the field, threaten defenses? Can they put enough points on the board? I have them contending for that final wild card spot. How do you see it?
I think you make some great points. And I think one of the keys to their season is does the connection with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. improve? I mean, there were people expecting last year, oh my goodness, it's going to be this unbelievable year, and it wasn't. And all of a sudden he's getting slings and arrows. But it was still solid. He had 8 touchdowns, 885 yards. They didn't connect on a very strong percentage of targets. That has to improve. They have one of the better tight ends in the league in Trey McBride. So perhaps I can't argue that stretching the field could end up being a question for that team. I look at always in the NFL, Rick. I know I get boring a little bit sometimes with this, but last year they improved to 8 wins from 4 the year before. Those 8 wins were 2 fewer than the Rams and the Seahawks. That's it. 2 fewer, right? The Cardinals were 3-5 in 1-score games. That is the key in the National Football League, winning close games, 1-score games. Between 50 and 55% of the games in the NFL every year are 1-score games. Added to that is about 70 to 75% are 1-score games at some point in the fourth quarter, right? So who finishes, right? Who makes that play to help win the game? Who maybe commits a penalty or an interception or whatever it might be, not stopping the other team? Who doesn't make a play and it leads to a loss? That's the difference in the NFL. You flip 3-5, and go 5-3, and they won 10 games. So I believe they will be in a hunt for the division, because Matthew Stafford has to stay healthy all year for the Rams. The 49ers, yes, they were injury riddled last year, but you look at that roster and there's still a lot of questions with it. Not saying they're going to win only 6 games again, but they're not that 12 or 13 win juggernaut that they had been. I don't see any team in this division winning 11, 12, 13 games. So I think it's going to come down to the wire. The Cardinals are very young at a lot of positions, but they've also upgraded with some experience on, as you said, in the trenches, in that front 6 or front 7. Everyone calls it the front 7, but we know in the NFL these days, the amount of time the teams are in nickel, it's really a front 6, right? But they had Josh Sweat as an edge rusher. And so they made some key additions. So again, it comes down to consistency. They talk about it all the time, but every team talks about consistency. But it's all a matter, like I said, of winning those, finding a way to win those close games. And when the Cardinals got to 6-4 and were in first place in the division at their bye, they got there by winning a bunch of close games, some of them with last-second field goals from a new kicker, Chad Ryland. So it is the wild, wild west. There's no doubt about it. But like I said, I think it's wide open. You can make a case to me for just about any team in that division, perhaps, playing good enough football for 17 games to capture that division.
I agree. And, the Cardinals were in just about every game. Win or loss, it was very close and competitive. I think it's a byproduct of head coach Jonathan Gannon. I mean, I think he's really grown into this role, and I like what he's done there. Now, the Cardinals, I mean, you can't ask for a better opening week game with the New Orleans Saints. You talk about talent depleted. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot. The quarterback situation is obviously a huge question mark. They're going to trot out Spencer Rattler here in week 1 against the Jonathan Gannon-led defense. What's your confidence level for the Cardinals week 1? Is there any scenario here where the Saints could pull off the shocker?
Well, there's always a scenario in the NFL. We know that. And by the way, Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck also, who was the second-round pick who didn't get the job, they both played high school football in the Phoenix area. So it was going to be interesting to see which one was going to win that job. And so, but you look at the beginning of the season, and this is a team that there is a certain level of expectation outside the team, but obviously they have that expectation inside the team. They also know how important you never want to look ahead to game 2, right? But after New Orleans on the road, which is never an easy place to play, no matter who the quarterback is, then they have Carolina in the home opener. Now, Panthers are an improved team, but it's still a game you look at and you say, Cardinals should win that one. So many people are looking at, boy, if they don't get off to a 2-0 start, then maybe this team hasn't taken the steps that everyone hopes. And, and the first game of the season is always kind of, a wild card because there's so many unknowns and so many variables to it. But I think the Cardinals should win. But like I said, you just never know in the NFL. And so many times it'll come down to you always hear coaches say it comes down to 4 or 5 plays in the game. What happens? Are there turnovers? The Cardinals on defense last year weren't very good on takeaways. And I think they had 17 takeaways for the entire season, which ranked near the bottom of the NFL. They have to improve on that number. Will they be able to take it away? Can they first stop the run, then get them in passing situations and come up with more sacks, come up with a game-changing play? That, again, that's what it sounds cliched, Rick, but that's what separates NFL teams. And that's what the Cardinals have to do and play clean football and take it away a few times to win that game, whether it's a 1-score game or not.
Yeah, well, Spencer Rattler playing quarterback, there's a very high percentage of turnovers being created in that matchup. I know Gannon also speaks a lot about explosive plays, limiting explosive plays. I guess we'll see if the Cardinals can produce explosive plays. Speaking of producing, you are on Sirius XM satellite radio. I know you've got your shows coming up. Tell the listening audience at home where they can find you, what time, what you got cooking.
Well, with Sirius XM not doing as much as I used to. They changed the format of the Pro Football Hall of Fame show. So I did something for them in Canton. And so I'm still doing some things here and there, but there isn't anything, regular, at this point. But, people can go read me and, see me on, different podcasts like this and, and all that. But I managed to get busy in what, by the way, Rick, is my talk about milestones, my 50th season covering pro football.
Wow.
It's when I think of that, I say, oh my gosh, where did the years go? It's really something. In fact, I always use this term. I think you'll like this. Interviewed Warren Sapp at the Hall of Fame a number of years ago when he had been elected about 7 years before that. And I said to him, man, 7 years it's been since you were enshrined. Time flies, doesn't it? And Warren Sapp, the philosopher, leans back in his chair and he says, well, let me say this. I've always said that days drag, years fly, and decades zoom. And I kind of laughed. And Joe Harrigan, who I was doing the show with, laughed. Maybe it was Vic Carucci. And then I thought to myself, man, he is right.
Yeah.
How decades zoom. I mean, heck, this is, here I am in Arizona, left St. Louis to come here 5 years ago. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
that's half a decade. This, by the way, is the 10th season that the Rams have played in Los Angeles since leaving St. Louis in 2016. So talk a decade.
Zoom.
A decade. It has zoomed. And so that's what it's all about. And I will add this. There's one guy, and I'll go back to the Cardinals just for a moment because I thought of this when you were talking about, and I was glad I came on a little bit earlier listening to your last few minutes. Your comeback player of the year, and he probably doesn't fit your criteria because he really hasn't done anything. But Darius Robinson, who missed 11 games last year because of a calf injury suffered on August 22nd, almost a year ago to the day. This guy, I think, is going to be a game changer in the NFL. He's healthy now. He's part of a defensive line that includes, Calais Campbell, who turned 39 on Monday and is his 18th season, along with Dalvin Tomlinson. But they also have L.J. Collier and Dante Stills, a much deeper defensive line they've had. But I look at Darius Robinson, and I think he's going to have a really, really good season. Probably doesn't fit that criteria, which I agree with you. You have to have done something to be comeback player of the year. But I think he's a player to really keep an eye on this year, as there are many on that roster.
No, I agree. I'm a big fan of Darius Robinson coming out. I know he was hurt last season, and I'm not sure the voters even know the criteria of these awards. So, but everybody has different interpretations, right? You could define most valuable player a lot of different ways. But anyway, we digress there. Walter Nolan, didn't they draft Walter Nolan? He's banged up.
Yeah, he everyone was saying no one knew about it until training camp opened, but about a week or so before camp, just working out, guess what? He injured his calf. And everyone's saying, oh my goodness, what's happening with calf injuries for the Cardinals? And he's now on that reserve, physically unable to perform list. So he had no practice in training camp, can't practice for the first 4 games of the season. And I always love this, Rick, when people say, well, once those 4 games pass, well, then he's eligible to come back and play. Well, he's not going to be ready to play right away when you haven't practiced since mini camp in June. So do the math, July, August, September, into October. So it's going to take a few weeks before you're truly ready to get out on the field and play. But a lot of great things are being said about him, but that can really set you back. There's no doubt about it, especially when you're a rookie experiencing the NFL for the first time.
Yeah, big difference in game shape. And, if you rush back too fast, that's a great way to get re-injured. Now, we kept you overtime, Howard. I appreciate the time, man. So much great insight.
I hate talking ball.
No, we appreciate it, man. This has been enlightening. I know I learned a lot today, so I'm sure our listening audience also learned a bunch of information today. We're going to have you back on throughout the season, especially when we get closer to that Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. And hey, we'll keep it locked to the Cardinals Wire. Make sure you follow him. Is it H Balzer? What's the Twitter handle?
H Balzer 721 is my Twitter. The website, you can actually just put Cards Wire in. You can click on it. But if you want to put the URL in, it's cardswire.usatoday.com. A lot of content on there about the Cardinals. And I'm always tweeting out the stories that I do. And so it's just great. I'm humbled to still be going at it. My wife always says, boy, when are you gonna ever walk in and say I'm retiring? And you say, why should I do that? Right? Then what am I going to do all day? Right?
Yeah.
As long as I can talk,
probably listen and watch football.
Bingo. So as long as I can write and talk and do all those things, and people will call me, hey, I'm going to go until I can't go anymore.
Right until the wheels fall off. We love the passion, the enthusiasm. We salute you, Howard Balzer. 50 years. Congratulations. And we look forward to having you back on the show soon.
My pleasure, Rick. Anytime. Take care.
How awesome was that? Howard Balzer joining us here on the All Access Football Daily Show. It's your home for real football talk. It doesn't get much realer than that. Okay. We just peeled back the layers of the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection process to help you understand the intricacies of the selection committee. And boy, oh boy, I mean, it makes a lot of sense as to why so many few candidates were enshrined this past year, and the outlook for future candidates such as Eli Manning, such as Phillip Rivers, such as Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, the log jams now are just going to get bigger and bigger. The waiting line entrance to get in is going to get longer. It's something we will definitely keep you up to date here on the All Access Football Daily Show. Now, there was a lot that I tried to cram into that segment with Howard, and we'll definitely have him back. We wanted to talk about some of the NFL Top 100. We didn't get to do that today. The show is scheduled for an hour of power. We're here at 11:18. We went overtime. We thank Howard Balzer for his time so much. Yesterday, we had Thor Nystrom. Tomorrow, we're going to have Kayla Santiago previewing the Eagles and Cowboys affair. We also have Friday Night Lights, Chargers and Chiefs. We'll have our guy Neil Stratton from Inside the League talking about the agent industry, the scouting community. Saturday, it's an NFL draft preview show. College football docket on the slate with our guy Russell Landy each and every Saturday. Sunday, make sure you tune in. It's my favorite day of the week. NFL selections against the spread will go around the league. All right. It's been an hour of power, actually 80 minutes today on the elongated edition. We thank you all for tuning in. Remember, we're here each and every day of the week, 7 days daily, no days off at allaccessfootball.com. Make sure you use our promo code RICVIP. Get that 30% discount over on the website. If you're in Chicago this weekend, Saturday night, Michael Imperi, Oli, Steven Sherpa, booking agent, Sopranos booking agent at gmail.com, Sopranos booking agent at gmail.com. You can see it down there on the ticker. And we'll be back at it again tomorrow with a brand new show. So keep it locked. Make sure you subscribe. Smash that like button if you made it here to the end. Spread the word. We appreciate all the love and support. And until the next time, everybody, this was episode 3 on September 3rd, 2025. Peace out.